Hansel and Gretel. On the edge of a great forest dwelt a poor woodcutter with his wife and his 2 children. The children were from the woodcutter's previous marriage. The boy was named Hansel and the girl was named Gretel. He had little to bite nor to break, and once the great dearth fell on the land, he could no longer provide even daily bread. When he thought over this by night in his bed and tossed about in his anxiety, he groaned and said to his wife,
"What is to become of us? How are we to feed our poor children when we no longer have anything even for ourselves?"
I'll tell you what, early tomorrow morning we will take the children out into the forest, to where it is the thickest. There we will light a fire for them, and give each of them 1 more piece of bread, and then we will go to our work and leave them alone. They will not find the way home again, and we shall be rid of them.
"No, wife, I will not do this. How can I bear to leave my children alone in the forest? The wild animals would soon come and tear them to pieces."
You fool, then we must all 4 die of hunger. You may as well plane the planks for our coffins now.
And she left him no peace until he consented. The 2 children had also not been able to sleep for hunger, and had heard what their stepmother had said to their father. Gretel wept bitter tears, and said to Hansel,
"Now all is over with us."
Be quiet, Gretel. Do not distress yourself. I will soon find a way to help us.
And when the old folks had fallen asleep, he got up, put on his little coat, quietly opened the door, and slowly crept outside. The moon shone brightly, and the white pebbles which lay in front of the house glittered like little silver coins. Hansel stooped and stuffed all the pockets of his coat with as many as would fit. Then he went back and said to Gretel,
"Be comforted, my dear little sister, and sleep in peace. God will not forsake us."
And he lay down again in his bed. When day dawned, but before the sun had risen, the woman came and awoke the 2 children.
Get up, you sluggards. We are going into the forest to fetch wood. Here is something for your dinner, but do not eat it up before then, for you will get nothing else.
Gretel took the bread under her apron, as Hansel had the pebbles in his pocket. Then they all set out together on the way to the forest. When they had walked a short time, Hansel stood still and peeped back at the house, and did so again and again.
"Hansel, what are you looking at? Pay attention, and do not forget how to use your legs."
Ah, Father, I'm looking at my little white cat, which is sitting up on the roof, and wants to say goodbye to me.
You fool. That is not your little cat, that is the morning sun which is shining on the chimney.
Hansel, however, had not been looking back at the cat, but had been constantly throwing one of the white pebblestones out of his pocket, marking the path they had come. When they had reached the middle of the forest, the father said,
"Now, children, gather up some wood, and I will light a fire, that you shall not be cold."
Hansel and Gretel gathered brushwood together, as high as a little hill. The brushwood was ignited, and when the flames were burning high,
Now, children, lay yourselves down and rest. We will go into the forest and gather some wood, and when we are done, we will come back and fetch you away.
Hansel and Gretel sat by the fire. Each ate a little piece of bread, and as they heard the strokes of the wood axe, they believed that their father was near. It was not the axe, however, but a branch which he had fastened to a withered tree which the wind was blowing backwards and forwards. And as they had been sitting such a long time, their eyes closed with fatigue, and they fell fast asleep. When at last they awoke, it was already dark. Gretel began to cry and said,
"Dear God, do help us. How are we to get out of the forest with no way to see?"
Just wait a little, until the moon has risen, and then we will soon find the way.
And when the full moon had risen, Hansel took his little sister by the hand, and followed the pebbles which shone like newly coined silver pieces, and showed them the way. They walked the whole night long, and by break of day came once more to their father's house. They knocked at the door, and when the woman opened it and saw that it was Hansel and Gretel,
You naughty children, why have you slept so long in the forest? We thought you ran away, and were never coming back at all.
The father, however, rejoiced, for it had cut him to the heart to leave them behind alone. Not long afterwards, there was once more great dearth throughout the land, and the children heard their mother saying at night to their father, "Everything is eaten again, we have 1/2 loaf left, and that is the end. The children must go, we will take them further into the woods this time, that they will not find their way out again. There is no other means of saving ourselves." The man's heart was heavy, and he thought it would be better for her to share the last mouthful with the children. The woman, however, would listen to nothing that he had to say, but scolded and reproached him. And as he had yielded the first time, he had to sadly do so a second time as well. The children, however, were still awake and had heard the conversation. And when the old folks were sleeping, Hansel again got up to go out and pick up pebbles as he had done before, but the woman had locked the door, and Hansel could not get out. Nevertheless, he comforted his little sister.
"Do not cry, Gretel. Go to sleep quietly. The good God will help us."
Early in the morning, the woman came and took the children out of their beds. Their piece of bread was given to them, but it was even smaller than the time before. On the way into the forest, Hansel crumbled his in his pocket, and often stood still and threw a morsel on the ground to mark the path they had come.
Hansel, why do you stop and look round and dally? Come on now, keep up the pace.
I am looking back at my little pigeon which is sitting on the roof, and wants to say goodbye to me.
You fool! That is the morning sun which is shining on the chimney.
Hansel, however, little by little, dropped the breadcrumbs on the ground to mark the path. The woman led the children still deeper and deeper into the forest, where they had never in their lives been before. Then a great fire was again made, and the mother said,
"Now children, lay yourselves down and rest. We will go into the forest and gather some wood, and when we are done, we will come back and fetch you away."
Gretel shared her piece of bread with Hansel, who had scattered his by the way. Then they fell asleep, and early evening passed, but no one came to fetch the poor children. They did not awake until it was very dark and late at night, and Hansel comforted his little sister and,
"Just wait, Gretel, until the moon rises. And then we shall see the crumbs of bread which I have strewn about. And they will show us our way back home again."
When the full moon came out, they set out on their way, but they found no crumbs of bread at all. For the many birds which fly about in the woods and fields had eaten them all up.
"Please do not fret, Gretel. We will soon find the way."
But they did not find it. They walked the whole night and all the next day too from morning till evening, but they did not get out of the forest, and were very hungry, for they had nothing to eat but a few berries, which grew on a bush. And as they were so weary that their legs would carry them no longer, they lay down beneath a tree and fell asleep. It was now 3 mornings since they had left their father's house. They began to walk again, but they always seemed to just go deeper into the forest, and if help did not come soon, they will die of hunger and weariness. When it was midday, they saw a beautiful snow-white bird sitting on a bough, which sang so delightfully that they stood still and listened. And when its song was over, it spread its wings and flew away before them, and they followed it until they reached a little house, on the roof of which it did land. And when they approached the little house, they saw that it was made of gingerbread and covered with cakes, and the windows were made of crystal clear sugar, and the siding made of what looked to be jelly beans.
"We will set to work on that, and have a good meal. I will eat a bit of the roof, and Gretel, you can eat some too. It will taste good and sweet, and we will get our fill."
Hansel reached above, and broke off a little of the roof to see how it tasted, and Gretel leant against the window and nibbled at the panes. Then a soft voice came out from the parlor. "Nibble, nibble, gnaw. Who is nibbling at my door?" The children answered,
The wind, the wind,
the wind,
the
the
heaven-born wind.
and went on eating without worrying about the voice. Hansel, who liked the taste of the roof, tore down a great piece, and Gretel pushed out the whole of one round window pane. They sat and enjoyed their little feast. Suddenly the door flung opened, and a woman as old as the hills, who supported herself on crutches, came creeping out with a gleaming in her eyes. Hansel and Gretel were so terribly frightened that they let fall what they had in their hands. The old woman, however, nodded her head and said, "Oh, you dear children, who has brought you here? Do come in, and stay with me a while, and no harm shall come to you." She took them both and led them into her little house. Then good food was set before them, milk and pancakes, with sugar, apples, and nuts. Afterwards 2 pretty little beds were covered with clean white linen, and Hansel and Gretel lay down in them, and thought they were in heaven. But the old woman had only pretended to be so kind. She was in reality a wicked witch, who lay in wait for children, and had only built the little house of gingerbread in order to entice them there. When a child fell into her power, she would trap it, cook it, and eat it. Witches have red eyes, and cannot see far, but they have a keen scent like the beasts in the wild, and are aware when human beings draw near. When Hansel and Gretel came into her realm, she laughed with malice, and said mockingly, "I've got them, they shall not escape me now." Early in the morning, before the children were awake, she was already up, and when she saw both of them sleeping and looking so pretty, with their plump and rosy cheeks, she muttered to herself, "That will be a dainty mouthful." Then she seized Hansel with her shriveled hand, carried him into a little stable, and locked him in behind a grated door. Scream as he might, it would not help him. Then she went to Gretel, shook her till she awoke, and cried, "Get up, lazy thing, fetch some water, and cook something good for your brother. He is in the stable outside, and is to be made fat. When he is fat, I will eat him." Gretel began to weep bitterly, but it was all in vain, for she was forced to do what the wicked witch commanded. And now the best food was cooked for poor Hansel, but Gretel got nothing but crab shells. Every morning the woman crept to the little stable, and cried, "Hansel, stretch out your finger that I may feel if you will soon be fat." Hansel, however, stretched out a little chicken bone to her. And the old woman, who had dim eyes, could not see it, and thought it was Hansel's finger, and was astonished that there was no way to fatten him up. When 4 weeks had gone by, and Hansel still remained thin, she was seized with impatience and would not wait any longer. "Now, then, Gretel," she cried to the girl, "stir yourself, and bring some water. Let Hansel be fat or lean. Tomorrow I will cook him, and have him for dinner." How the poor little sister did lament when she had to fetch the water, and how her tears did flow down her cheeks.
Dear God, do help us. If the wild beasts in the forest had but devoured us, we should at any rate have died together.
"Just keep your noises to yourself," said the old woman, "it won't help you at all." Early in the morning, Gretel had to go out and hang up the cauldron with the water, and light the fire. "We will bake first," said the old woman. "I have already heated the oven, and kneaded the dough." She pushed poor Gretel out to the oven, from which flames of fire were already darting. "Creep in," said the witch, "and see that it's properly heated, so that we can put the bread in." And once Gretel was inside, she intended to shut the oven and let her bake, and then she would eat her, too. But Gretel saw what she had in mind, and said,
"I do not know, how am I to do it? How do I get in?"
"Silly goose," said the old woman, "the door is big enough. Just look, I can get in myself." And she crept up and stuck her head into the opened door. Then Gretel gave her a push that drove her further in, and shut and latched the iron door, and fastened the bolt.
Oh.
Then she began to howl quite horribly, but Gretel ran away, and the godless witch was burned all up, nothing left but ash. Gretel, however, ran like lightning to Hansel, opened his little stable, and cried,
"Hansel, we are saved. That old, wretched witch is dead."
Then Hansel sprang like a bird from its cage when the door is ajar. And oh, how they did rejoice, embrace, and dance about. And as they had no longer any need to fear her, they went into the witch's house, and in every corner there were chests full of pearls and jewels and treasures of all kinds. "These are far better than pebbles," said Hansel, and thrust into his pockets whatever could be got. And Gretel said,
"I, too, will take something home with me,"
and filled her pinafore full as it could be.
But now, we must be off, that we may get out of this enchanted, wicked witch's forest.
When they had walked for 2 hours, they came to a great stretch of water.
We cannot cross, I see no foot plank, and no bridge.
And there is also no ferry, but a white swan is swimming there. If we ask her nicely, she may help us over to the other side. Little swan, dost thou see? Hansel and Gretel are waiting here for thee. There's not a plank or bridge in sight. Please take us across on thy feathered back so white.
And the swan came to them as if to hear, and Hansel seated himself on its back and told his sister to sit behind him. But Gretel replied, "No, that will be too heavy. She shall take us across, one after the other." The good little swan did so, and when they were once safely across and had walked for a short time, the forest seemed to be more and more familiar to them. And at length they saw from afar their father's house. Then they began to run, rushed into the parlor, and threw themselves round their father's neck. The man had not known one happy hour since he had left the children in the forest. The woman, however, had died while they were away, and the father was all alone, save a tabby tomcat. Gretel emptied her pinafore until pearls and precious stones rolled about the room, and Hansel threw one handful after another of precious gems and pearls out from all his pockets and added to the pile. Then all anxiety was at an end, and they lived together in blissful happiness.
Happily,
Happily
ever
ever
after.
after.
Happily, ever after.
But just try to stay out of my way. Just try. I'll get you, my pretty, and your little dog, too.